Thank you for staying with Citizen TV. This is the State of the Nation, where I talk about matters, politics, and everything in between there. My guests are with me in studio, Honorable Eddie Okech, Senator for Migori, Honorable Hilary Sigei, Senator for Bomet, and Dr. Kuru Okot, Third Way Alliance Party leader. Gentlemen, let's talk about the dialogue, and I'll start with you, Kuru Okot. Is the dialogue necessary?
Absolutely not. It's another waste of time. It's diversionary. It takes Kenyans back to the 2018 handshake between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila. Then, of course, the NADCO, the bombers talk, which, of course, bore nothing for Kenyans, except the mutilation of the IBC Act now through the amendment that was signed into law. And even this one, it is government escaping from addressing the concerns of the people. It's an escapist, conversation. It continues to excuse a government that made promises to Kenyans that we will form a government of Mama Mboga, of wheelbarrow guys. It will be a bottom-up. These days don't even hear about bottom-up approach anymore because there was nothing like that. You don't hear about the plan because there was no plan. And in fact, if you dissect, for example, the leadership in this country today and the government, it's about looting and plundering. Now, the conversation in Kenya about government officials is about how expensive my belt is, how expensive my watch is, my shoes, where I buy them. Imagine that's what, as the image now we have been reduced to look at, cabinet secretaries and their closest friends. So Sigei may try to defend this government, but the truth for the matter is there is anger out there that, the government is running away from the real issue. Now, if you ask yourself, Trevor, what will be the nature? Is this the first dialogue we ever had? No. And dialogue about what? Really, exactly. People are talking about high taxation. I don't know, Eddie can probably educate us more as an economist in this, but the little I know is that over-taxation in any country cannot lead it to prosperity, to any economic development, especially where you are not creating industries, production, and putting money into people's pockets so that you can tax them. And there are many examples, I think, like I remember, for example, during Margaret Thatcher, when she just took over the premiership in the UK back in the days, she actually reduced taxes and people started paying. I think, was it Ronald Reagan in America? So this idea of taxation is something that the government is trying to run away from.
Yeah.
The promises of jobs, Gen Zs are saying, don't give us that, don't tell us about dialogue. We're not going to come to those dialogue. Where are the jobs that you promised us? And they are now also saying, we don't want to go and do menial jobs wherever you are. And as a matter of fact, and maybe Sigei can respond to this, let's have statistics on the many jobs that you've created out there that now has promoted these young people and made their lives better.
Okay.
What they are saying is, create jobs here in Kenya. We want to build our own country, not to go and build other people's country, other people's economies,
okay.
With tokenism.
Okay.
So the government is running away from the real issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eddie, is this dialogue necessary?
Trevor, where we are seated today as a country, we are seated in one reality. The government of the day has lost legitimacy. Legitimacy from the civil society, legitimacy from the young people who are on the streets and keep on with this civic action as well as now political action. Legitimacy from everyone. And when my brother, Dr. Kuru Okot, says that there was no plan, bottom up was never, he must be on record that actually he supported this government.
I voted, not supported. I voted.
I take
just like you voted.
Wait. No. In fact, the biggest level of support is to be able to vote for that government into office.
We'll give you a chance.
But he's my friend, and I follow Twitter Spaces, and his tweets are still online. Support includes the voice that he voiced and believed in confidence about this entire regime. So he cannot run away to the fact that he gave us this problem by voting and by supporting to what it is, And the reason why I'm bringing this out very clearly is that if the government has lost legitimacy, and then most importantly, what he has talked about is very important. Losing legitimacy is one thing, but losing confidence of the people. He's a constitutional lawyer. And he knows that the act of the people coming to the house of the people in parliament basically means that it's a vote of no confidence. If this was a different system that's not a presidential system, where probably the president could be able to dissolve parliament, because that's what the president did not give us. Parliament could have been dissolved. The president could have resigned. We could have gone back to the people to seek new mandate. Now, we are in a constitutional crisis where you are in that state and the end game isn't clear. Because what young people are talking about in this country must be addressed. And you know where I come from? I came from the private sector. Sometimes we simplify these things into what is the short-term, results that must be seen. What is the mid-term result that must be seen? What is the long-term results that must be seen? The short-term results that must be seen are the things that we're talking about here. We must see the stop of what we are seeing as the abduction and killing of young people. That does not require, any drastic plan that we're talking about, plan to be able to happen, to be able to have people like Koome leave office, to be able to have people like Bungei all to account, to be able to have the president himself, who is the boss to all these people, be held to account to these issues. We are talking about plumber of public resources, and we have got ministers who, whether in private or not in private, have been seen to have plumbered these resources. Holding them to account and be able to deal with them is not being seen. Yeah. So why is it wrong for Dr. Ekuro Aukot to purport that a conversation is not needed? Is then give us alternative to this conversation. And I want to make it clear here, because I'm among young people who is a member of ODM, is a senator of Migori County, and most importantly, in that ODM, I am also the head of disaster management and humanitarian crisis, as a secretary at the NEC level, which means that we have a responsibility to our people that we are leading. Yeah. So that they call us. Young people called us when Honorable Raila Odinga, together with Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, was seen at KICC, signing for what had come out of NADCO, which I think was a brilliant success, in the sense that when we went to Mandamano, by the way, Dr. Ekuro Aukot, I have been in these Mandamanos that some of them were almost like assassination attempts. If you look at what happened in Kware, I was in the mix of that. We were there with Baba Raila Odinga, we were there with Kalonzo, we were there with Honorable Martha Karua, and from these conversations, yeah, we cannot run away from the product of that conversation. Okay. And when Raila Odinga talked about a national conversation, he did not talk about a national conversation between him and Ruto. He did not talk about dialogue between him and the president. He acknowledges that he is a leader of Azimio, yeah, he is a leader of ODM, and that ODM and Azimio are movements that are not exclusive of the Gen Z. They are Gen Zs who are members of this institution. Yeah. And one thing that I really appreciate Gen Zs for is the kind of organization that they have done, to the extent that they have forced, the government at least, yeah, to stop this kind of arrogance that we are seeing, to stop this kind of lagis that we are seeing. But you see, there is always pros and cons in every movement, even in the statement that Baba made. Yeah. There is pros and cons to it. And one of the things that...
In fact, it was interpreted that you're planning to join government.
I'm going there, because that is what I was with Baba yesterday when the young people called us, and the interpretation that was coming from sometimes propagandists, yeah, that I don't want to mention. There's nowhere Baba mentioned the issue of handshake. Baba talked about civil societies at a larger level, churches, different communities want to have a conversation, yeah, at a national level, and it's not about him and Ruto. Yeah. It's about what the country needs to have that conversation.
You were there with him yesterday. In fact, you can bring up that picture so that you tell us, if you're saying that there was no conversation about handshake, then why was he denying it? Let's bring up that picture, because he's clearly said, nimeambiwa na viongozi kwamba mmesema hamtaki handshake, yes, ujumbe umefika. Yes. So why are you denying something that is not there?
I'm not denying. I'm saying that once Baba talked about a conversation at a national level, yeah, a larger conversation. By the way, Trevor, young people, there are some who have had conversation with President Ruto. Yeah. Ruto held something called the Twitter space. And there are leaders in this country who have got organizations and followings that they must give attention to their people. There was a misconception online, yeah, that people then reduce the idea of conversation. One, very clearly they reduce it to a conversation between Baba and the president. That was the first misinterpretation that conversation brought. And I'm telling you, very confident as a young person who is representing the country, that what the conversation is supposed to be is about larger groups of the country. We cannot keep on having monopoly of the president coming and addressing us down and having good conversation on Twitter Spaces and not getting to a solution that is constitutional, right? And you know, Gen Zs have said they are leaderless, they are fearless, they are partyless.
So, Eddie, a direct question.
I'm coming there.
Is there a handshake in the offing?
There isn't. That is why we went and made it very clear as young people.
Why did Raila say ujumbe umefika?
Because young people and other civil society, including the media, was framing that conversation in the pretext of handshake.
So what was your ujumbe yenye imefika?
That we are looking at all the data from young people in the country. We are getting information from many young people. We get calls as leaders. Yeah. Sifuna, we went with to Mzee, Sifuna is the leader of ODM at an SG level. He gets calls from all the chairs of ODM in the entire country.
And what did they say? They don't want a handshake.
And they say they don't want handshake.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no handshake in the offing.
I believe that is the true position of most young people in this country, and most importantly is that a conversation that is going to be national must have some serious preconditions to it, right? And those preconditions that we have talked about very clearly, that there has to be some serious actions that we must see the government taking before we even get to that.
All right, let me bring in Sige is not talking about
I haven't, yes.
Dialogue.
Dialogue or
and what is the agenda? Because the Gen Zs have clearly told you, we've told you everything that we want. We don't even want to come to that dialogue of yours. So who are you going to talk to?
Now, dialogue or no dialogue, my answer is in the affirmative. And I say so well-guided. Why? Because every other engagement that comes must have conditions in terms of what are the objectives, what are the TORs, where are we headed to out of this conversation. And so it is true we've had conversations about several issues. We've had dialogue. After the 2022 general election, remember the year that immediately came had demonstrations, the examples that Senator Eddie has given us. What ultimately became of those demonstrations was the bipartisan talks, which, by the way, I was a member. And shortly thereafter, it transformed into the NADCO. The NADCO report had, the NADCO committee had both the government and the opposition team. It was actually led by the Honorable former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka and the leader of majority in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah. It gave birth to the IEBC Act now, because it was ascended to just the other day by the President, where now all these players were present. And among other bills, actually 8 of them, 4 in the National Assembly, 4 in the Senate. We are at the moment prosecuting them. That conversation within the NADCO committee was a dialogue of leadership of those in government and those who are outside government. And that is how we closed on the demonstrations then. There were so many issues which were discussed. There were 8 of them. I do not need to list them here. And that is why we are where we are. Here, we have now come again following the demonstrations by the daring young Kenyans, the Gen Zs. They came out, they listed issues that they wanted to be discussed. They listed the concerns that they had. They went into the streets, which is their right, and I'm very happy that they did that. And being in a democratic space, they were able to send out the message. Shortly thereafter, the President had them in a dialogue on the X space, where most Kenyans and most leaders completely discouraged it, saying, look, you can't do it. But the President said, these are Kenyans, these are young people, these are the leaders whom we would want to listen to. They have issues, they have concerns. He listened to them for 2.5 hours, or 3 hours on the X space. A number of issues were raised. That is still dialogue. The day the President signed the IEBC bill into law, I was present because as a chairperson of Justice and Legal Affairs, we did deal with that bill in our committee and made our presentation. It did not mutilate the bill, or rather the IEBC Act as it's being put by Ekuru Aukot. It was actually progressive amendments, and that is why all the parties were involved, both the opposition and the government. The most unfortunate thing is that everyone else here, like my colleague here, everything is bad when he's not a party to it. But as long as he's a party to it, it's okay. But it complies. This issue around... Allow me to just finish, because I wanted to say the dialogue that the president now spoke about the other day, because Ekuru dismissed it and says it's not necessary. He actually asked the question, dialogue about what? I mean, we still talking about dialogue about what? Yet at the same time, we are saying that we went to the streets to raise issues. We can't appropriate and
address the issues.
We cannot.
Issues you're talking about.
But there is one of the issues, for example, Trevor, that the Gen Zs are saying is that we need to be involved in this leadership. How do you do that? You cannot just wake up in the morning and say you just pick anyone. That is why the president spoke the other day and said, in the coming week, running Monday through Saturday, we're going to have a multi-sectoral framework conversation comprising 150 people. Youth will be represented there. That is the only way you can pick on those people who will play the critical role of attempting to resolve some of the issues raised.
But Sige, I need you to respond to something here. In your area, now the youth are saying that there is Occupy counties. One of them is your place. In fact, your governor, Raila mentioned this earlier on when he was in Bomet, considering people are supposed to go and protest there. Let's listen to what Raila had to say.
Part of probably what will be presented tomorrow is an edited report from the Office of the Auditor General, which is a public document. You can log in to the website of the Auditor General and retrieve reports for all the 47 counties. But we have a version that was edited, and unfortunately it was done in the office of the Senator, and a copy, and even some of the information has been manipulated to create an impression that we are misappropriating funds. I want to say we have statutory appearances in the Senate, and if there is anything to be prosecuted as relates to how money has been used in Bomet, then we have a forum. I don't fear. I'm ready to appear from Monday to Friday to address issues in the Senate if there are any.
Sige.
Trevor.
Report to target the governor.
That's quite interesting, and I'm happy to respond to this, by the way, Trevor. My governor just freaked out. You know, there is that thing called responsibility for actions that you're taking. The statement the governor has said about the Auditor General's report, I sent him myself, because that is my role as a senator. I'm doing oversight. He was not aware that the Auditor General has even posted that report on the website. It is me who told him. I have reviewed the report, and what I shared for the people of Bomet is the statistics of the embezzlement of funds, which the Auditor General already identified and have posted them in the website. What I did was to review and give I mean, it's so basic that I was surprised that we are so sorry we have got someone in office who, having been told that, my friend, there has been a report from the Auditor General's office. These are the areas he has picked.
He says you edited it.
Of course, I did not. It is there. I'm telling you, he was not aware about it. It is me who told him, look at the website. There are 47 counties. There are 47 reports called Green Book. He was not aware about it. So I'm happy that he's speaking about it because I informed him. And unfortunately, he appeared on Monday, and I'm happy Senator Okech is here as well. He was summoned by CIPIC to account for Longisa Referral Hospital audit report for the financial year 2021-2022. I think that is what triggered him, because there was also an expose of a lot of things which were not adding up. And instead of responding to the Auditor General, he's bringing documents before the CIPIC. And in fact, CIPIC chairman, the Honorable Sotsi, and my colleague here were modest and reasonable enough to accept the documents after the audit report has come out. So when the young Kenyans from Bomet says that, look, we want to come and ask you about accountability of the resources, I mean, the only place that one would run to is the senator, blame game. And I'm saying this is the responsibility of the senator to unravel.
Because this is in the Senate, Trevor.
Yeah, let him finish. It's his county.
Yeah, it's in his county. But I think that there is a very important context of this conversation where you will be having many leaders in this country coming to explain themselves the way you just put Senator Hillary to explain themselves. Because usually in the order of our politics is that our politics is so competitive that even at county levels, you will always have almost a 50-50 situation. And this is why I think that if there is anything we must be able to celebrate in this country, is the tenacity and the organization of young people to build this Gen Z movement that has been able to put people into account. You know, as we are speaking right now, Hillary must know that it is for the first time in this country that a finance bill has been rejected. It's for the first time in this country that we have got military on the street. These are realities that we are facing. It is for the first time in this country that young people are calling for proper order in government. But there's danger for this brilliant thing of young people that we must advise young people about, that some people can take advantage of the movement. You know, because I was talking about the issue of leaderlessness of a movement. The moment there is no leader in a movement, the pro is that nobody can compromise you in terms of the larger conversations. For instance, somebody cannot go and say they're going to negotiate on your behalf. Hell, there's nobody who can twist the arms of young people to that level. But then there's also the element of responsibility, you know, whereby now who takes responsibility where this kind of thing starts, whereby people might think that it is this leader who is, then it dilutes the movement. And you will see a number of them where I even saw in Homa Bay, you know, Occupy Homa Bay County, and it has already now been said that it is the opponents who are organizing these young people, this kind of thing. So we cannot afford, I'm talking as a young people of this country, we cannot afford to dilute the movement of these young people where populist politicians want to take over this movement, tribalist politicians want to take over this kind of movement. We cannot afford that because these young people are the people who are calling the country to order, and this movement cannot be diluted.
Okay.
But and then they must be able
to... You guys are now...
Basically, it's about...
This is not about Senate.
You'd ask me a question.
I was giving a context.
One second.
I want you to allow me to conclude.
This is not about a Senate.
From that conversation, from that praise by the governor, I just wanted to make this something clear. There's something Eddie has said, which is actually true, and it is exactly what the governor said, that I am sponsoring and financing the Gen Zs who are visiting him today. The document which I shared, the Green Book for the county government of Bomet is over 300 pages from the Office of the Auditor General. I edited to make 38 paragraphs with specifics of what issues had been raised. That is the one that is circulating, and that is the one that we are going to deal with. He will definitely appear before the national, the Senate. And therefore, the young ones are doing their right thing. We do not want to interfere.
The reason why
we
I'm bringing this up is because the Occupy movement that is now happening in different counties, and even this dialogue itself, the leaders seem not to understand what the Gen Zs really want, because it's an amorphous body. Even now that there's a dialogue between them, and they've said they're not coming from Monday to Saturday. What is the agenda of this conversation?
That's why I was saying, Trevor, earlier on, that this so-called dialogue is directionless, is an excuse, it's diversionary. It is running away from what you promised the people of Kenya. You said you'll create jobs, you'll bring them this, you'll do that, you'll form a government of inclusion of all. But when you went ahead and formed a government that is not inclusive, I mean, those are the promises of UDA in 2022. They said they will form an inclusive government. You tell me who is a Gen Z in that government today? None. And what the Gen Zs are saying, stop luring us into empty rhetoric. Do the things that you promised. We want to see results. And by the way, Eddie accused me of being responsible for...
I did accuse you.
No, you did.
I just mentioned.
You did. So, but Trevor, let me tell you, you know, electing either Eddie's party or UDA was like yourself finding yourself in a pool of pool full of hippopotamus and crocodiles. Either way, you'll be eaten. So actually, there was no difference at all whether I voted for UDA or ODM. Yeah. After all, what are we seeing now unfolding? You know, the same thing was said of some of us when we ran independent in 2017. Yeah, and later on, we said there was no difference between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila. Then the handshake happened. You watch this space, and I hope you can actually keep this recording. ODM is going into government with UDA. Call me a political prophet or anything, but that's the truth. And you can see the difficulty Eddie has in defending the actions of his party leader. Just like you see the difficulty Sigei has in defending a failing government. You know, and this is the quagmire. This is where Kenya found themselves. And this is why the Gen Z revolt is a reality today. Because one, you have a so-called opposition that is always yearning to just join government for purposes of their own comfort. Then you have got a government that is failing. So one of the geniuses of any failing government, just like, for example, the Jubilee one, was to lure a person who can create noise out there into government so that they can go back into slumberland. Just like now Ruto has realized he's been cornered by the Gen Zs, so he's reaching out to who? To Raila Odinga. And that's why you can hear this story of dialogue or, you know, signing of the IEBC bill the Amendment Act, so that now you increase. What is the rationale? We are talking about largesse in government, because that's one of the things that the agencies are raising. But now, you are now increasing, for example, the selection panel from 7 to 9. For what purpose? If you look at the dominance of who is going to be in that selection panel, it's about the political class, actually. 5 out of the 9 will be from political parties. And actually, it's in a way a softer version of taking us back to 1997, the IPPG. 1997. And this is what the Gen Zs are saying. You know, we are tired of you lying to us, always collaborating, pretending that you are actually opposed to each other's policy, but you still go into bed with each other. Yeah. So the bigger conversation is that, I mean, and maybe at the risk of sounding unpopular, let me just say this. You know, President William Ruto has actually, there's one thing I think we can say maybe has happened with this presidency. The ending of the so-called fake dynasties in this country. That at least he was able to enter that conversation. So that today, we are not able to talk about certain people, certain appendages of the so-called dynasties in our political speak. But the other opportunity is that he has now given us an opportunity to transition from one generation to the other. Because now the Gen Zs are seeing, look at these fellows. If one is not in power, they try to cause havoc with the other once they go into bed. So now, my biggest prayer is that as many Kenyans as possible can actually now open their eyes and say, we are going to offer ourselves into leadership. And this is one of the things that I've been having conversation with some of the Gen Z groups. Yeah. Offer yourself into leadership today. Let's stop lamenting, because you have capability, you are able. Because the more we just reduce the political narrative of this country into certain quarters only, the more we are not able to progress and move forward. Okay. And I think it's time we see younger people actually take over leadership. Just so
you're foreseeing another coalition government or a handshake?
It's coming. It's coming, Trevor.
It's Trevor. Okay. Trevor. I was listening.
As the Gen Zs will say.
I was listening.
Let him finish.
As the Gen Zs are saying, it's loading.
It's loading. If you disagree with this, then why is there a split in this conversation? In fact, let's bring it up so that you hear from them verbatim. Part of the team that is in Azimio. This is what they had to say about this conversation and the dialogue position by ODM. Let's listen.
We don't want to be seen to be sanitizing a regime that has fallen flat on its own tummy. So we are not.
So, why is there a split?
You know, I listened very well when Dr. Ekuru Aukot speaks, and I think that sometimes when you trivialize some conversations, then you're not being honest. Because if Ekuru Aukot was honest, he would be in the street leading the opposition. He has talked about the possibility of him having run as an independent and other kind of things. And I want to be on record that we speak on behalf of our people, and we speak sometimes on behalf of younger people who also reach out to us. I'm a senator of Migori County, I'm a senator in the Senate, and what I've said, that I went to Raila Amolo Odinga and passed a message that the conversation is morphing into two things. One, people questioning both online, and all of us are in these Twitter spaces and are on these public spaces. People are questioning whether this dialogue that has been mentioned is between him and President Ruto. And I am clear on TV that that had to be debunked, that it is not a conversation between Raila and Ruto, because in the first place, the crisis that we are in is between Ruto and the people of Kenya at large, and Raila Amolo Odinga wanted a conversation that...
Trevor.
Can I finish?
No, let him finish.
I let you talk.
Just let him finish.
And then number two, the conversation that was morphing, that young people interpreted that that conversation of dialogue is about handshake. And we delivered a message to Raila Amolo Odinga as young people that young people don't want handshake. That's my role as a Kenyan, and that's my role as a leader. We delivered the message, he acted on the message, and he explained to the people that that is not what is in his mind. That is not, he has heard what the people are saying. But then, the issue of national conversation, by the way, dialogue, in whichever form is dialogue. The fact that young people are in the street right now, they're dialoguing. That's dialogue. It is going on in the streets. It's just whether you choose that you want to continue with it on the streets or you want to continue with it on the table. And that conversation is up to Kenyans to be able to have. That's why I'm telling you that even these Occupy counties will not stop and should not stop, because governors must be kept to account. But we cannot have a situation whereby young people have got serious movement that might get diluted just because they have chosen to be leaderless. Ekura Court knows that Baba Raila Amolo Odinga, through these conversations that have been in the streets more than him, since 1980, Baba has been to the streets more than Ekura Court. What these young people are trying to do, Baba understands them not just as Gen Zs, as some coded protesters of our times, but he understands them at a personal level as his grandchildren, as people who are coming from families that are facing serious problems of economic needs. And through those conversations, Trevor, Ekuru Court came onto national prominence because of Agenda 4, because of Baba's understanding of what needed to happen of constitutional reform in this country that has even given us this county. We say Mugala Muue. Akim.
If he's not stating facts,
okay?
You will say.
Yeah, if I'm not saying facts, Ekuru was the leader of committee of experts, which it is Baba who put him there.
Never.
Okay? And number two, yes, he's a very smart guy and he's a very smart lawyer.
I'll give you a chance to respond. You're here.
But he put him there through a process of conversation at a national level that necessitated the having of a committee of experts who could be able to review the colonial constitution. And through that colonial constitution review, we came up with a brilliant constitution that people like Ekuru Court must be able to be credited for. Okay. But they cannot take credit without the initiators of that conversation. It is wrong to trivialize the lives of people who died in last year's Mandamanos. People lost lives. People were shot. I was in the digs where people were being shot. And through that conversation, we have come, NADCO came in place, and one of the products of NADCO was that there was an IEBC review, which honestly, Ekuru Court wrote for a constitution that says that when those processes are going on, there has to be a public participation in those conversations. I have not seen anywhere documented where Ekuru Court was able to comment the kind of comment that he's talking about that IEBC formation during the time that this thing was in Parliament. Is now bastardizing it and criminalizing it. And I think that I would take offense even on any leader who leads us to a point whereby we have developed a document and then disowns that document and its result for convenience of what is going on in the country right now. Raila Amolo Odinga must own the IBC process, because it's that IBC process that will be able to even open up a window for young people and other people in this country to even speak more and be able to even replace some of these leaders that are there. So it's extremely critical. It's extremely critical not to run away from the things you've done and achievement. The Constitution, for instance, is not a perfect document, but we must be able to appreciate Ekuru and his team for giving us at least something that we are working on. But even if the Constitution needs to be improved, we cannot run away from the fact that he did a good job. Okay. Just because we want convenience for what is going on in the country.
Let's hear Sige, then I'll give you a chance.
Thank you.
Yes, you will.
we cannot have a conversation in the dialogue, as we are saying, without the opposition, without the Gen Zs, without every other player that the president spoke about the other day. Because it is all about the issues which were raised, which of course had been raised before, that we are now saying, let us come together as Kenyans because of the opportunity, the golden opportunity that now we have gotten to right the wrongs and to correct where we have not been able to do so. And I actually take offense, for example, when I listen to the comment by Kalonzo Musyoka, saying that we are not coming to, we're not getting into help something that is already to sanitize.
Yes.
You know, Kalonzo Musyoka and Eugene Wamalwa sat in the NADCO committee. In fact, I'd say he was the co-chair. And this actually affirms now the watermelon person we're talking about in Kalonzo Musyoka. Kalonzo Musyoka was in KICC when the president was signing IEBC bill into law. He is among the few people who spoke. Kimani Ichung'wah spoke, appreciated the president and Raila Amolo Odinga for giving NADCO committee the opportunity to do the right thing for the people of Kenya, and welcomed Kalonzo Musyoka. He also made similar comments. But a rider to his speech was, he found it very hard for him to come for that event upon being invited. And the reason is, he was expecting that Baba, Raila Amolo Odinga, going to AU, he would be the king of the opposition. It's not coming forth for him. He's feeling cheated. He's part of the team now that they are trying to create a position of, we do not want this dialogue merely because they don't have a table in this conversation, according to them. But, Trevor, the conversation that the president is asking Kenyans to do is to make sure that it is a win-win situation. We listen to Kenyans, we listen to the Gen Zs, to the issues they have raised. We attempt a solution. Whether or not there will be a handshake is not here nor there. At the end of the day, we want Kenya to be united. We want this country to be the country that listens to the people. Issues raised, issues resolved. So I would agree with Eddie when he feels offended also when my colleague here, who he's a seasoned lawyer, he's my senior in the profession, he's done so much for this country, and he trivializes some of these great movements that people are trying to do, whether you're in leadership or not. Because, for instance, one of the things that he said, which I don't agree with, is the fact that he said we mutilated the IEBC Act. He also has gone ahead and said that the majority of the selection panel members will be from the political parties, which is not true.
It's true.
The schedule, it is not true, Council. It's not true. The schedule talks about 9 members. Out of the 9, 3 are from political party liaison committee. The 3 is 1 for the majority party, another one for the minority party in parliament, and the 3rd one from among non-parliamentary parties. The other 2 are competitively recruited by Parliamentary Service Commission. An advert has gone out. Kenyans of all walks of life are free to apply and be subjected to an interview process for them to be able to be selected into the panel. That makes 5. Out of 9, there is a remainder of 4. 2 are from inter-religious groups. 1 from the Law Society of Kenya, and the last one from ISPAC. The expansion of this selection panel was informed by the need to have as many players as possible to participate in the selection panel of IEBC, because all of us agree this is a very critical player in formation of government. So it is not true to just tell Kenyans that 5 out of 9 will be selected by political parties. That is not what the law provides, and he knows it. That's why I always say, let's not speak to the camera. Let us have a debate and a honest debate with Kenyans. Tell them the truth, tell them the facts as is, and let them digest for themselves.
So I invite Kenyans, of course, to read that Act now, the Amendment Act, for themselves and see how the 5 will, where they're coming from. They're coming from political parties, and that's the point I was making. Ed, let me ask you a question, and please answer it truthfully.
Yes.
Who made you the senator of Migori?
The people of Migori.
No, I think it's Raila who made you the senator of Migori.
But it's not Raila who was voting.
Boss.
Yeah, so
he's elected.
I have to answer it very clearly.
Wait.
I have to answer it very clearly. Go to IBC.
I listen to you.
because
Let him qualify.
no, but no,
He has asked
no,
you a
but
question.
yes, no.
You've said the people of
No,
Migori.
I have
Let him
listened to
qualify.
him.
But I have no, but Ekuru,
You know what?
Ekuru, just listen,
Hold on,
just
hold on
listen.
Hold on,
Go to
Eddie,
IBC.
Eddie, hold on one
Eddie.
second. Let him
Stop
qualify
being
his question.
jittery.
You've already
Stop being
answered it's the
jittery.
people of Migori.
Stop being
Yes.
jittery.
I'm not jittery.
And I will tell you
I'm
why.
very
And I will tell you why I asked that
I'm
question.
very composed young man.
Okay.
Because of the ignorance he has put forth here that Raila made me the CEO of the Committee of Experts. Again, he had not read the IBC Act, and maybe I can invite you to again to go and read, particularly sections 5, 6, all through, how the selection, how the committee members were being recruited. There was a public advert, yeah, which we responded to. There were 4 organs of the review of the Constitution at that time: the Parliament Select Committee, the Committee of Experts, the National Assembly, and the referendum. It was the Parliamentary Select Committee that was recruiting members of the Committee of Experts, not Raila Amolo Odinga. So these political psychophancy you have and believe in particular individuals, I think has to come to an end, Trevor. You see, when we say so-and-so did this to us, personality, I think let's talk about the issue that actually concerns these Kenyans generally. You could be an initiator of an issue, but don't hog at the limelight and say that it is me who did this, it is me who did that. Because I asked Eddie that question deliberately because I was leading him. When Eddie attempted to be the governor, Senator of Migori the first time, he tried to go under ODM. And I remember telling him, Eddie, utakarangwa na ODM. You will not get the certificate. He was denied the certificate by Raila. Then he went as an independent, he didn't get in the repeat election. Eventually, he crawled back to Raila, and that's how he became a senator. So when you start accusing other people who are competitively recruited, and you who are to go and lie down in a political party, look up to your political leader to get into the position you are, I think you're being wrong. But having said that, let's now move this conversation forward. The idea of dialogue, to me, I'll repeat, is not necessary. And the idea of dialogue, centralizing it in individuals, is a complete fallacy. Let's talk about the people the things that bedevil this country. Unemployment is a big issue. Today, Trevor, as you walk on the streets, people ask for basic things. I think I've said it in your show many times. Sometimes you get SMSs from people, need to me 500 bob, 200 bob. I mean, for some of us here, and I'm sure Eddie knows this, and so does Sigei, you begin to wonder, what will somebody do with 200 bob? Those are the problems. Those are the problems that the agencies are actually raising. And that's why we are saying, Sigei, the government of the day, which you are part and parcel of, made promises to Kenyans. That's why I'm saying there was a plan. Can we now be told, I'm thinking what the agencies are saying, let's take this conversation a notch higher. Can you then account? For example, look at the Auditor General report, the one that you've shared with your county government. It talks about theft of public resources. What is the government of the day doing about that? Killings on the street. Who is taking responsibility? Those are the bigger questions. Let's not personalize what's happening in Kenya and say it is so and so. I think if there is only one person here who could hold responsible at the end of the day, is the President of the Republic of Kenya. Let him account for
that. I agree with Trevor.
But also,
very fast.
While you're still on the floor there, how then will this be structured? Because there has to be a structure that, okay, what demand one is we need 100 jobs. Then the President comes and says, I've managed 98. At this particular point, when you say that we need accountability, then somebody has to say that from an accountability perspective, 1, 2, 3 things has to happen. Because the thing is, at this particular point, it's very fluid. Even if the President decides to fire maybe like 3 CSs, is that enough? Because nobody told him he wanted 3. If he says it's creating 19,
so for example,
what was the target?
Yeah,
so there has to be a structured way of having this conversation, right?
Yes, exactly. So for example,
who puts that agenda on the table? If you're saying that the dialogue is unnecessary, under which marking scheme are we using, so to speak?
So I've just said, for me, I still hold the view, to be honest, to call for this dialogue, or in whatever format you want to call it, whether it's national conversation or consultation or whatever, there are certain key issues that Kenyans expect the government of the day to do. For example, you keep on referring to the fact that I'm a constitutional lawyer. Fair enough, and that's correct. If you look at the cabinet formation and the constitution, it's talking about a maximum of 22 cabinet secretaries.
And a minimum of 14.
And a minimum of 14. Today, we have how many cabinet secretaries? 24. That's already a violation of the Constitution. And when you talk about a large government, vis-a-vis, I don't know what they are calling dilapidated economy, or we inherited empty coffers, but then you are going ahead to expend that which you do not have. It does not make sense. If you're talking about the fact that we don't have money, why not give us some austerity measures, for example, and say, let me reduce my cabinet to maximum of 14, so that then we can save on money. I think those are some of the concerns Kenyans are having, and that's why they're saying there are certain glaring things that you have not done or you are supposed to do. Now you are calling us into an abstract thing called dialogue, which we don't even know how it's being shaped. What are the issues that you want us to dialogue on? For example, can the government even tell us today, you don't need to dialogue, you just need to report.
All right.
Report to the people of Kenya and say, this is what I have done since I took over office. For example, when you say to audit national debt, come on. We have institutions already that can do that job. So you cannot invite Kenyans to the table and say, let's now audit national debt.
Okay.
I think this is what I believe in as a young person in this country. The Gen Z movement must continue. Okay? And organizations that are also politically led by other people must also continue to run and be able to involve on any conversation that of what's happening in our country is affecting all of us. And you know, the reason why I said that it's critical to look at it from that perspective is because I agree with Ekuru that there are some preconditions for this kind of conversations. And I don't know whether Ekuru understands dialogue just as people sitting on the table and talking, or even dialogue as what's happening in the streets. Because what I'm seeing Gen Zs are doing, they're having a serious dialogue, and they're having it on the streets, and I want to urge them to continue having that conversation, right? Because when we talk about the issues that are root causes to why Gen Zs are on the streets, they're not just issues of economic emptiness and lack of income for them on the streets, but they're issues of endemic vested interest in governance, to the extent that I have been on this station, Trevor, again with you, many times, and complained over the last 2 years that I've been in Parliament about the separation of power between Parliament and the National Executive, to the extent that the Parliament has been so compromised and vested interest between the Executive and Parliament has denied young people opportunities in this country. I have talked about these issues that need to be addressed of economic crimes that are happening by people in government, and we have seen it in the manifestation of ministers who then end up budgeting corruption in everything that they do, and that budget is enabled by Parliament. I gave an example, for instance, of the GAA deal that was signed under the watch of President Ruto when he was a deputy president, what we call the government advertisement agencies. Government advertisement agencies is doing business with government that is becoming a key player in the advertisement space and media space in this country, and no longer a regulator the way it was intended. And those deals are being done by people in government. Money is being paid to the pocket of individuals. They are not paying media industry. So if you look at something like that could be easily be corrected, look at today how much that GAA is owing the media. Nation Media is being owed 3 billion, Nation Media alone. And that 3 billion has impacted the way Nation Media can be able to provide jobs for young people, to the extent that 108 young people have lost jobs. Okay. If you look at the Standard Group, they are together with K24. They have not been able to pay their staff for the last 7 months. Okay. Those 7 months that will pay their staff, most of the young people in those advertisement spaces, whether it is digital or otherwise mainstream media, are young people who can be able to excel if they are being able to be paid these monies. But it's not happening because of vested interest in government. Okay. The president must respond to that and be able to deal with it. But as that is going on, as I finish, as that is going on, there are other larger conversations that are affecting our parents. All these young people, when they come back home, they have got trauma. Some of the kids who have died, if you look at Migori, people like Brian, his father is a wheelbarrow pusher in Migori town. When they come back home, there are brothers, there are sisters, and their sons and daughters of families that are decentralized economically, that then a larger conversation, whether on the street or on the table, must happen that is inclusive to all voices in the country. And I wanted to finish by saying this to Dr. Ekuru Aukot. If you do not believe in a process I believe personally, if I don't believe in a process, I wouldn't participate in it.
Okay.
Because the Agenda 4 that brought about the issue of writing of the new constitution that he became the CEO of Committee of Experts, it is a barbarous initiative. It is an initiative of convention of the leaders at that time that if you believe in it, you could. And you should also know, as I finish, you should also know, because he has questioned me on TV, that of all the elected leaders in Migori County, I got 317,000 votes. At declaration, I had to be able to be declared at 295,000.
Okay.
The governor of Migori County, to give you perspective, got 170,000 votes, is an ODM member. The women rep of that county got 150,000 votes. And she is, an independent candidate. So, by large, the confidence that people of Migori had on me goes to about 90%.
Okay.
So you cannot trivialize it.
Okay.
By then I got more votes than he got in the entire country because he got 20,000 votes when he vied for president. But you cannot be able to compare.
Fine.
Yes. When Caesar ordered the arrest of a gentleman called Pulcher, who had gotten into the ceremony in a bid to entice his love for Pompeia, that is the beginning of the story we always talk about. Everyone, if possible, should be as without blemish as Caesar's wife. My senior here, Ekuru, speaks as though he is without blemish. We have had this conversation as Kenyans from the 25th of June to date. And the president has invited Kenyans, Gen Zs, members of the opposition, members of the civil society, and very many other players into a multi-sectoral platform where we are going to discuss issues affecting this country. Whether that will be a forum for us to talk about the debt of the country, the taxation that we are subjecting our people to, the employment that the young generations of this country are saying we need to be employed. We need to create opportunities for them. Whether we are going to be talking about the reduction of the cost of living, it is something that all of us, when we become honest and leaders in our respective positions, should be able to support so that we now can generate a Kenya that is going not to be without blemish, but making an effort on a daily basis to serve the people of Kenya the way they are supposed to.
All right.
And so we should support this. I know Kenyans will come for that multi-sectoral forum.
All right.
The young ones will come, the opposition leaders will come. Those who are looking forward to getting positions in government might not come because that is their selfish desire.
All right.
The rest of us, Kenyans, we will be there.
Thank you, gentlemen, for making time. Honorable Eddie Oketch, Senator for Migori, Honorable Hilary Sigei, Senator for Bomet, and Dr. Ekuru Aukot, Third Way Alliance Party leader, Santini Sana. That has been State of the Nation. We're taking a quick break. When we come back now, up next is Cooking Tips. Bye for now.